What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and today we are having a closer look at the One Piece Treasure Cruise tier list. Of course, we're ending the month of June, heading into July. We've got a brand new batch of characters to have a look at, including, we've got the new Usopp, we've got Chopper, we've got the super evolution of Wano Law, and then the two new additions that are coming with Nami and Robin. So all of these characters, we'll discuss them and see where they're going to be put into the tier list. Of course, I did update the tier list last month, where I have changed the rankings and the tiers a little bit. So we still have the top 5 legends, potentially might upgrade it to top 10, not 100% sure yet. These are just the characters that I consider to be the best in the game right now. We have the characters that I think will see a lot of usage in a lot of content, and remember, this is not including Pirate Rumble, this is just using them in generic content, clashes, coliseums, blitz battles, you know, whatever it may be, PKA, co-op quests. So this all makes a difference in terms of how useful these Sugofest exclusives are going to be used, and then it just kind of scales down from there. So I feel like these characters will see some moderate usage. These ones, you know, they're very good to have because you'll use them every now and again, and then characters that have like one specific use that you might use them for, and then there's like a lot of other characters, honestly, that are just kind of mid. They're usable, but there's just better units to use in a lot of cases compared to these types of characters. But I guess we'll have a look at the tier list and see if there are any changes that need to occur. I think most of this is pretty solid. Of course, we're going to make some new additions to the tier list with the new characters that got introduced. But are there any of these characters that need to be buffed or lowered, honestly? And I think after looking at this, I honestly think this Zoro should come off the list. I think this Zoro is just so bad. I think a lot of people kind of agree with me on this one. This Zoro just ain't it. He's just not that good. I mean, like, S-Snake is not really that great either, but she does have some specific uses. Of course, removing chain attack down is really cool, and inflicting weakness and increased damage taken. There's some cool stuff you can do with that unit. I think V2 Shanks might potentially receive a little bit of a buff here. I think V2 Shanks is pretty underrated. He's very good in Kizuna Clash, where you got to build like a team with like one like set color, and building a whole team color around that Shanks is good, because despite the fact Shanks is int, you can still build like a full side team or a full Dex team and just have Shanks on the crew, because he does still give the buffs to everyone. So Shanks is a pretty nice unit, but his captain ability, I wish it had a piece of utility in it, because he just doesn't really have utility, really. So that's the only real downside with that unit, to be honest. Most of these characters are fine just the way they are. Like, a lot of these characters, like some of them, like specifically Kuzan, Izo Okiku, very good in Treasure Map, for example. But outside of that, there's none of these characters that are like jumping out at me saying like, oh my god, these characters are good in heaps of content. There's just a couple of key uses for some of them, really. Bumping up to the rarely used tier, so these are some characters that see a little bit more play, in my opinion. Again, you know, got some pretty solid characters here. You know, like Pudding, I think is still super good. None of these characters like saw a crazy amount of play really this month. Like I do think that Moria and Perona are a pretty good unit, but I just don't really find a lot of places to use them at the moment. That is, I think this guy potentially might get buffed. I think Stampede Luffy is pretty freaking strong. I do think this Chopper should be bumped up, honestly. I think this Chopper does see quite a lot of play. And as I said, I think Stampede Luffy needs to be buffed up as well. As for the rest of these, it's kind of fine. Like, I did use Luffy Yamato a little bit this month, which is kind of interesting, because I do think this is one of the worst design units in the game. But of course, in Kizuna Clash, where they give you max super swap charge at the start of the quest, it does make the character much more easier to use. So I guess, you know, take that as you will. Bon Clay still pretty good in a little bit of content. V1 Blackbeard, not really used all that much, but he's okay. Potentially gonna buff him down, I think, into the niche usage tier, despite the fact he has that captain ability that allows you to bypass enemy defensive effects. That is good, but the condition in order to activate that is kind of annoying to build for, especially when Blackbeard does not fulfill any of the conditions with his own classes. So that does kind of suck. He's just a little annoying to use, honestly. But I feel pretty comfortable with the rarely used tier. Cat Viper potentially might get knocked down. In terms of moderately used, so these are characters that will see a play in quite a lot of content. Potentially Rayleigh might get buffed up, I think. I just continuously see myself using this guy over and over again. He's just really strong in a lot of content. You know, you got the Sulong characters, Carrot, Dog, Cat, Carrot Wanda. All these units are great. Sabo, Halloween Ace, one of my favorite characters in the game, super good. Magma Kaido, definitely doesn't see as much play as I would have thought, potentially might bump him down. He is good though. I think Vegapunk needs to be bumped down a tier. I just don't see myself using him all that much. Lucci saw a bit of use with obviously him coming out and being released, and he's being a boosted character in recent content. We'll see if that holds true moving forward into the future. I don't think it will, but we'll see how things go. Tandem Luffy, the pre-evolved form just appears to be better in almost every way. I think a lot of people kind of agree that the 6-star form of Luffy is just kind of better. The fact that you have to use this guy and his EX Super, the requirement to use his super class was actually made worse when he super evolves. That really does suck. And of course, most of his kit is better when he super evolves, but the usefulness and the ease of use of him goes up. Goes down, should I say. So he's harder to use when he's super evolved, but if you do build correctly, he is stronger, but it's just that the other Luffy's easier to use. So it's a balancing factor. It's an interesting unit for sure, but I just think if you have the unit, you're probably keeping him as a 6-star because at least in Pirate Rumble scenarios, the 6-star version is just better, which is kind of interesting. I think Onami potentially might get bumped down because I don't know if she's really going to see that much play. I think she's okay, you know, removing defense and defense unconditional and color affinity, damage dealing special. She does do a lot of cool things. I just don't really think she's like as useful as I put her up there. Moving up a little bit higher now into the top tiers here. And I guess the big thing that's standing out is I did put Shanks quite low. And I do still think at this current point in time that Shanks is the least useful out of the 3 big anniversary units of Shanks, Ace, and Luffy. But I will agree and concede that he is extremely powerful and does deserve to be in the tier right below the other guys. But I still don't think he is as good as Ace or Luffy. I think those units are a bit better and a bit more useful, despite Luffy having a bit more really awkward conditions to use all of his abilities. But Shanks has proved to me, at least going into this month, that yeah, Shanks is still really good. But yeah, out of the 3, I definitely prefer the other 2, but Shanks is still extremely powerful. So don't be disheartened if he's like the only of the anniversary units that you pulled. He's still very, very good. Don't get me wrong. Roger, though, has kind of surprised me this month. He is just amazing. You can build a lot of teams around him as long as he's set as your captain position, using that special to get attack orb, color affinity, attack down removal, defense up removal, damage reduction. Like, Roger is a beast. The only real problem is like building for his EX Super can be annoying, but the fact that you can have him like as your captain, and then your friend captain can be basically any of the anniversary units, and you can build around that, is pretty cool. So I think Roger's great. Big fan of this unit. As for the rest of them, they all seem about right. Yamato is fine. I'm not really the biggest fan of this Yamato, but, you know, bind removal in the captain, very similar to Shanks. Both have bind removal in their captains. Both are major color affinity boosters, but of course they've got other abilities that are a bit different. They are both slasher captains as well, so a lot of similarities between Shanks and the Yamato. Nami Karina, one of the best units in the game for sure. Alba, big fan. You know, the rest of these units are pretty self-explanatory, I feel. A lot of people might be wondering why I have, like, Hiyori, Robin, Jinbei, and Chopper. These are, like, key utility units. I mean, even Nami Karina can be put in this same category. These units, while they're not, like, focused on damage, these are some of the key utility units that consistently come up and are consistently used in a lot of content, whether that be TM, PKA, Colosseums, you know, everything, co-op quests, right? These units consistently see play over and over and over again because they have great synergies with some of the best units in the game, and they're just amazing. They just get rid of so many gimmicks, and they help you just not only do that, but also help build for EX Supers or Super Tandems, or, you know, conditions for final taps or whatever it is, or Rush Sugo specials, because they're Straw Hat related. And then, like, obviously with Hiyori, she works really well with the En Mizoro right here, and the Wano slots, abusing Wano slots, locking them for multiple turns. Like, at face value, if you actually read what Hiyori does, she doesn't seem that broken, but the utility that she provides with those Wano slots for multiple different turns is just so good, and she's used in a lot of content for that reason. And then we've got the top 5 here. Now, I really still don't know how to rank this top 5 efficiently, because, like, I don't know if Ace is actually, like, the top 5 best unit in the game, honestly, but he is really good, and he just consistently comes up. Like, he's just super good. I mean, I guess I'll leave the top 5 for now. I don't think it really needs that much changing. Some people still don't agree with Uta. I used her on stream for, like, Kizuna Clash and stuff like that, and, dude, Uta consistently shows why she is one of the best legends in the game. She's so good, and the use of her being able to have the striker cerebral form or a cerebral shooter form, they are slightly different in the way that they're kind of built, but Uta is fantastic, and the utilities remove both paralysis and special reverse in the captain ability is crazy good, because you can synergize that with another captain that removes another piece of utility, so removing so many different gimmicks just because your captains are that good is great. So big fan of that, and I do still think that Zoro and Sanji are like the best unit in the game. This unit is phenomenal, so good. So I don't really think there's that many changes, honestly, in terms of the tier list. Not really much has changed between the anniversary, May 12th, until now, which is kind of strange. But let's go and have a look at some of these new units. Let's start with Usopp. So Usopp is a pretty cool unit. When I first read him, I thought he was like just fine. The set target status, I think, is a really cool component to him, and I think he's probably going to be used in like high damage content, like Kizuna Clash, for example, for a super boss. Being able to build like a really solid free spirit team with this guy, or a shooter team, or a dex team, where you have this set target status which can give double damage to your dex, shooters, or free spirit characters, but it's really cool because he's an Usopp character, which means that he is able to proc some of the EX supers or super tandem chains because he's a Straw Hat. Like some of the best units in the game, like Zoro Sanji super tandem, having an Usopp is able to help you proc that. Luffy for his EX super, having you know, one of the Straw Hats on the team is really good. Same with this Luffy right here, and it goes for some of the other characters as well that are Straw Hat related. So, you know, Usopp being that, but also giving double damage that is stackable with increased damage taken and weakness debuff is very strong. While he does provide a guaranteed delay through immunity, he doesn't give you a delayed conditional boost. That's kind of like the big problem with the unit. But because he provides that unique set target status that can be stacked with other different types of buffs, that is probably his use case. But that's like the only reason I would ever see myself using this guy, because set target status is pretty broken. But outside of that, he's not really going to see play. There's not much of a reason to use Usopp because he just doesn't do that much aside from set target status through status effects, which is pretty strong in and of itself, but it's not enough to carry him to higher tiers in my opinion. So the next character on the list to talk about is going to be the new Tony Chopper that debuted for the Kizuna Clash. Chopper is pretty cool. So if we have a look, I actually don't remember exactly what he did, but the big thing, he does reduce the pain debuff. Not a lot of characters are capable of doing that, so that's already giving him a little bit of a leg up in terms of usefulness and uniqueness. Captain ability is int, cerebral, and fighter focused. So, you know, building mono int or a cerebral focused team, him being int and cerebral, you potentially could synergize them well with the other Vegapunk type characters. The special ability is interesting, does remove defense, poison is kind of whatever. He's an int character, so you can already put Shiryu support on him as a way to get rid of poison, but he does remove that. He also gives cooldown, he gives tap timing chain bonus, and then he also gives chain buff and healing, and he just does a couple of different unique things. These are not very common buffs that you see, like tap timing chain. I think this is chain addition, not chain multiplicative as it's listed here. And then he does give a little bit of base attack boost, and he does do a little bit of orb change. He's just kind of unique in giving a couple unique buffs, but I don't think he's going to see a hell of a lot of play. So I think I'm just going to leave him in niche usages for now. I don't really think he's going to see that much play. But the thing is, though, is that he does have a pretty good captain ability, going up to 5.75 based on the amount of healing that you did in the previous turn. So you can secure a 5.75 times attack boost pretty comfortably with Chopper. You're healing a lot at the end of each turn. So securing a high multiplier is not that big of a deal. I just think that he just doesn't do enough for him to be used in a lot of content. And like removing defense, there's plenty of characters that can do that. He does remove poison, which is like, whatever. You're not poisoned in every piece of content. The cooldown is fine. Tap timing chain is like okay. Healing, you know, you can stack your attack buffs multiple times and base attack. Like it's just, he's just okay. Obviously, he's kind of cool in Rumble, and I think that's a huge benefit to the unit, but I can't really rank him that high because I just don't think he's going to be useful in a lot of content. It's just, it is what it is. It's unfortunate for the Chopper fans out there, for all three of you out there. I hate Chopper, probably my least favorite Straw Hat, but hey, his Sugofest exclusive is just fine. Speaking of Sugofest exclusives though, we've got Trafalgar Law. Wano Law receiving his 6+. Now, Wano Law 6 Plus, I already made a showcase video about this guy. I actually really like what they've done with him, because his captain ability is a lot better, lots of healing, and now he gets the despair reduction after you've, overhealed a certain value. But receiving this overhealing, it's actually not that difficult to achieve. It depends on the content that you're going up against. Like in short form content like Kizuna Clash, and potentially a PKA, because the mobs have such a little HP, getting that overhealing may actually be difficult. But in most other content, this is pretty easy to achieve. So he basically has despair reduction in his captain effect, and you only get the benefits if you are at full HP to get the 5.5 times boost. Now, in a lot of content, it is very, very difficult to maintain full HP because of health cuts. Switching with dual characters can potentially manipulate your health so you don't have full HP anymore. If you activate a super class where it gives you additional stats, that does also reduce your health. So there's so many different ways to just get a little bit of chip damage off so that you don't have full HP. That can be a net negative for Trafalgar Law as a captain. Saying that though, as a sub, he is so much better, allowing you to do a damage dealing special now, end of turn damage for multiple turns to get around resilience, guaranteed full board of slots, orb boost, massive chain boundary, and also if you manipulate the slots correctly, being able to get a 3-turn boundary and a 3-turn orb boost is definitely a lot better. So the thing is he does a lot of cool things, but it's nothing that's game breaking. However, it is a Trafalgar Law character, usable in a lot of EX Super and Tandem requirements, which is cool, and the fact that his buffs of like just generic orb boost and chain boundary, end of turn damage, full board of slots, and Law gets access to some pretty decent supports, I do think he's going to see some usages here and there. I think he's a pretty solid unit. I don't think he's that bad. Not the best 6+ of the year, but he's a pretty solid unit overall in my opinion. And then we're at the two new legends here with the new Nami and the Nico Robin. So these two units are pretty cool, although I don't actually remember exactly what they do exactly, because the Sukafest is not actually out yet. So let's go ahead and have a look once again, brief rundown. So Nami, I think Nami's pretty solid. Special bind removal by 7 is incredibly good. Lock slots and get us a full board of tandem slots. Like, that's already amazing. Now this bit I hate, boosting the next final tap of Dex Striker Cerebral by 30%. It's a decent buff, but like, let's be real here, it's not that amazing. And then also allows increased damage taken effect to be further stacked 2 times. This has potential to be very good, but the fact that you already have to inflict it in some other capacity, because Nami doesn't inflict increased damage taken herself, so you have to have some other way to inflict it, and then using her special to allow it to be buffed multiple times. And then if you've overhealed a certain value, a 3.5 chain boundary is ridiculously good. Otherwise, you're still getting a 3.0 chain boundary, and then if you use a special multiple times, then it gets a chain lock buff, and also increased damage taken is further increased by 0.5. The issue with that though is that Nami, she does have a cooldown of 13 turns with expansion, so after using her special, you need to somehow reduce her cooldowns again. She does have a crewmate effect, which I believe is listed here somewhere. Yeah, this one right here. Reduces her cooldown by 10 every time a Dex, Cerebral, or Striker captain uses their special. So if you're able to secure that, that has potential to work. You can only use it once per quest, and you still need other ways to reduce her cooldown to use her special multiple times during the same turn. So I don't know how useful that's actually going to be, but the potential is there, I guess. She does have final tap, which is a decent final tap, I guess, and her captain ability is also pretty solid, removing I believe it's paralysis in her captain effect. Yeah, 10 turns of paralysis, and then pretty good multipliers here as well, healing, tandem slots. It's fine. Her EX Super is decent as well, where it gives herself cooldown, applies paralysis, gives you the extension of chain lock, and also gives you a conditional boost against increased damage taken and paralysis characters by 3 turns. So it's not the best conditional boost, only being a 2 times, but it's for 3 turns, so you could potentially abuse that over multiple different stages. So I think Nami's interesting. Nami gets access to some great supports as well. So Nami right now, I think at the moment, I would put her maybe in this tier. I don't know if she's going to bump up to these type of tier characters. Like, these characters will see consistent play and quite a lot of content. These characters, they're good, but you know, you're not going to use them all the time, that's for sure. So, you know, Nami, I think she kind of slides into this position, and I guess we're going to talk about Robin as well. So, Nico Robin, she's got a pretty cool special as well. She does remove barriers and damage nullification. That's pretty rare. That doesn't happen very often. And then also reduces resilience by 7. Really shamed about this, because removing resilience is one of the most meh things you can do, because there's so many other ways you can get around resilience. You can poison, you can ignite, you can do end of turn damage. All ways you can just get around resilience, right? So removing resilience by 7, you know, that's cool, and in most cases that will get around resilience most of the time, but sometimes the enemy will have resilience for like 10 turns, and then this doesn't even get around it, you know? So there's just so many other more efficient ways to get around resilience rather than just removing the actual buff itself. So I'm not a big fan of this in particular. She does give you a chain multiplicative buff, very rare to do that in a special, and then also allows your chain locks to be further buffed 2 separate times. If you overheal, you can then inflict 2.25 times increased damage taken for 1 turn that goes through status effects. That's very powerful, being able to do that through status effects. And even if you don't get the healing, you're still getting a 1.75 increased damage taken. Doesn't go through full immunity, but still at least you're getting it. And if you double stack her special in the same turn, you increase your chain lock by 0.5 and also increase your chain multiplicative buff as well. So the special's interesting. A couple things I don't like, but also potential for this character to be insanely broken with increased damage taken through status effects is one of the most like craziest things you can do, honestly. She has super tandem. It's not the best super tandem. You need, I think it was like 2 or 3 characters you need to tap with in order to get it. I think it's 3 characters you need to tap with, including Robin, and then you only get a 2 times buff out of it. It's just not good enough. So really bad super tandem in my opinion. The captain ability does reduce burn, which is unique, not as good as Nami's because paralysis is more common than burn itself. She gives damage reduction, recovery bonus, and she also heals every time you move into a new stage, and has the same, you know, crewmate ability to use her special twice in the same turn, potentially with some more cooldown reduction. So I think Robin, I don't think she's as good as Nami, but she has the potential to be pretty broken due to increased damage taken through immunity. So for that reason, I'm going to put them both in the same tier for now. Unfortunately, nothing really threatened the top tiers this month. Nothing really came out that was really game-changing or game-breaking, because these memories of the Straw Hat Legends are just not that good. At least these units bring a little bit more excitement into the fold, and Usopp and Chopper were definitely a tier above the Sanji and the Zoro that we saw in the previous month. But with all that being said, that's pretty much it. There's not really much to talk about aside from that. You know, we've got, I mean, I guess like this Garp here, to be honest. I mean, this Garp can kind of go in here because there are some cool cases where you could use him to get around defensive effects. I just noticed that one there, to be honest. But anyways, moving on from that, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm looking at a lot of characters here, and you don't really need these units. They're not going to do that much for you until they get crazy level limit breaks or crazy potential abilities, or further level limit breaks, that is. That's pretty much where it stands right now. So let me know your thoughts and opinions about this one down below in the comment section, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post on my channel, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, then make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.